Hey, how's it going, everybody? 8-Bit Hero back in action. It's been a little while, and you're probably wondering, where the hell you been? And in all fairness, that's a pretty good question. I kind of want to do this video and cover everything for the last 3 months, and I feel really bad on the way I just kind of dipped out unexpectedly. But it was all for good reason. I'm going to be kind of referencing my notepad document I have here, and just mainly to make sure I don't miss any of the key points. Right around the time I stopped making videos, we were putting out Minigame Madness. We wanted to experiment at the Shotbow Network with whether or not producing mini-games rather than full-fledged games and doing them more often would be more appreciated, or rather than doing what we do, which is full games. The general consensus obviously ended up being that they prefer the full games rather than the mini games, which is fine, but we kept them around. I was working on something called Shotbow Slaughter. I was remodeling a castle called Venom Castle by Danza222, a good friend of us, and hopefully I'll be able to return to that game mode and kind of polish it up a little bit more. We were preparing for a future mode called When in Rogue, which has just recently launched in alpha and has been getting tons of great reviews and press. At the end of Minigame Madness, I pitched an idea to Laser. I said, hey, let's make Titanfall in Minecraft. And he said, that's a wonderful idea. So I went ahead and started working on a map and got to about 95% of the way complete. We were adding the last building in and doing the last bit of terraforming. And the next day, a competing server launched Titanfall in Minecraft. We had already made a lot of code changes, and the map was 95% of the way there. Unfortunately, it's just something that's never going to get to be seen. The changes did get rolled out on coding side to Death by Void, some of the wall clinging and wall jumps and stuff from Titanfall, and as well as some of the gun mechanics got implemented into Wasted. So we tried to make best of the situation, but just cut our losses. And I'll try to put a link in the description of a picture of the nearly finished map. We were doing Demeter from Titanfall, so maybe one day we'll find a home for it or something, but for the time being, it's resting in peace on the development server. And then immediately after was When in Rogue development time. That's when we were going to hammer hard and get it out for spring, and that is my baby. I've been the project lead or builder lead anyways on that project for quite some time, and really wanted to get things going on it, so I neglected family and eating and sleep and just really tried to hammer it out as fast as possible, and it was launched to great reviews. It's a 4-player co-op dungeon crawler, roguelike, so you have randomized loot and randomized dungeons and randomized enemies, permadeath, and pretty much everything else associated with a roguelike, but in a 4-player co-op setting. And that's something that was greatly missing from the Shotbow Network, because we didn't have many games that appealed to a co-op sense. It was usually PvP focused, so this really filled a big void in our heart. And then, unfortunately, I hate to even have to cover this topic, but right in the middle of development, Mojang proposed a new EULA, which is End User License Agreement. The biggest argument that people make is, well, you guys technically never had permission to do what you're doing in the first place. And that's where they're wrong. And not just a little wrong, very wrong. Before the Shotbow Network was created, we had approached Notch and Carl, the COO of Mojang, and said, hey, listen, this is the business we'd like to make. This is what we're planning on selling. This, and this. Is that okay with you? And they replied, we spoke with all of our lawyers and the staff of Mojang, and it was a difficult decision for us, but we've agreed that, yes, this is indeed okay. You are clear. And a business was created upon that, HC Gaming LLC. So not only did we receive written permission, but we were, of course, invited for the next 2 years with the launch of MineZ to do a MineZ panel at Minecon, and we were also invited for building a community panel at Minecon the following year. And I headed the builder panel for all you creative folks who like to place blocks on the ground. And all were highly successful. In fact, the builder panel ran to be like one of the longest running panels in Minecon history. It went on for way over longer than it was supposed to because people had so many questions. So not only did we get written permission, verbal permission from them in person, but we also were publicly acknowledged via Minecon. They even distributed things like class unlocks and stuff in like the goodie bag. And we were proclaimed the second tier of content to Minecraft. Mojang staff even runs servers, which includes the ability to purchase ranks just like we do, and even goes a step beyond where they have access to things like teleporting to other players, like commands of that sort. So even they, people make the argument that like, well, you were always breaking the EULA. Even they are running servers that break their own EULA, technically. Because the staff have to follow the same rules as everyone else. You can't be, Coca-Cola and say no 7-Elevens can carry Coca-Cola products, and then, your buddy Jeff has a 7-Eleven and you give him Coke products. Yeah, you can't do that. So there's a common law called estoppel, which I'm going to have to read from this just to make sure I cover it correctly. While there's no time limit on a EULA enforcement, like any contract, they can, in theory, become more difficult to enforce if there's a lengthy gap between the contract starting and the enforcement beginning. So in other words, if a developer says they won't enforce their rights, or says, hey, much like Minecraft did, we're going to go with a much more relaxed EULA, and even in the original EULA it says, hey, you're free to make mods and distribute for money and all that stuff. It says here that after the game buyer has relied on that claim in some concrete way, and I think a judge and jury would argue that, hey, written, verbal, and public permission, I don't know what else you could do concrete-wise. You can't enforce it essentially after you make that written contract. And this is a common law that's enforced in the UK, in the United States, and any other country that enforces common law. So they're really breaking the law by trying to change this, especially after giving all those different types of permission. But the major server owners weren't, we're willing to accept that, yes, some servers have gotten out of hand. There's no doubt that there's bad eggs. Absolutely. And they asked major server owners, because obviously we were concerned that things that were previously legal are suddenly, when they say, hey, yeah, you're absolutely legal to do this, and then 2 years later, by the way, we're suing you. Now, thanks for coming to Minecon. We asked what kind of options we could provide in order to pay the bills, and if we could change a couple of things. And so we submitted a couple of ideas of what we could do to make money to keep the servers online, because servers are not free. They run thousands and thousands of dollars if you're a major network. And what they did, follow-up truck there, is they took all of those suggestions from the major server network owners and then did a follow-up FAQ a couple days later and made all of the suggestions illegal that weren't previously announced in the proposed changes. They were like, oh, what can we do to help you guys? Okay, this, and this. Cool, make those illegal. And you can obviously see this in the blog post. They even went so far as to change the most ridiculous definitions of computer hardware. They said an entire network of 50 plus servers equals one server. You don't have to be a mathematician to figure that out, that obviously their aim is directly at servers. So what they wanted us to do is they wanted us to separate their goal is to balance the playing field between paid and unpaid people, and that's totally fine. And that's something that we weren't trying to argue, but we were trying to argue some of their obviously technically and legally wrong terminology of entire network of 50 plus servers equals one server. Clearly not. And so what happened is Notch and the rest of Mojang actually portrayed server owners to be supporting pay-to-win servers, and that's not the case at all. And they were blindly dismissing any requests for us, and it started a campaign called Save Minecraft, and there was a website called sterlingplays.com, and you're welcome to check it out. It essentially had our disagreements with their proposed EULA changes. Meanwhile, Notch and the rest of Mojang continued to dismiss all the server owners and saying, hey, we're not going to support pay to win, which that wasn't what we were trying to do. We were trying to get some better clarification on some of their definitions. And I don't know, if it's me and I owned, I don't know, a major company of some kind and sold a product, and then the next day, I was the #1 trend on Twitter and on the front page of every gaming website. It seems like to me, I would have read the letter that everyone was referencing all over the world. But no, Notch refused to read the letter. He said he was too stressed out and continued to shop for high-end cars for the rest of the day, which he proclaimed he didn't need. He just wanted it for vanity's sake. And then a couple days pass, and then bought himself a $46,000 record, while still making statements like, oh, I'm not in it for the money, and still, to this day, has not read the letter that says, hey, we're not trying to support pay to win or anything like that. We just want you to change the words that, hey, one network equals one server, because that's not the case, clearly. When you're paying for 50 servers, you're paying for 50 servers, not one. And then on top of that, they're launching Realms at the exact same time. So it seems to me when they ask the major server networks, hey, what can we do to help you? And then make all that illegal, and then launch a competing service at the exact same time, you gotta admit it looks fishy at the least. So it provides nothing positive to the end user, to the people who are playing games. Games that were previously free for you will no longer be after August 1st, for the servers who are going to try to conform to this and make it happen. And the goal was to keep communities balanced, right? Keep the free players doing the same as the paid ones. And what it actually ends up doing is by, this network rule, we have to create a different IP address for each individual game and say, okay, paid players go over here, free players go over here. That doesn't make you a good community. That doesn't solve the problem. And they were doing this in an effort to reduce support emails that they were getting from moms and dads who their kid had used their credit card and paid for some server. Be responsible for your kid? I don't know. That seems like a logical... I mean, yeah, granted, you got support emails, but it's not like these servers don't offer support. It's not like when you make a payment to a server that there's no one answering support emails or doing refunds or anything like that. In fact, if you receive so many chargebacks via PayPal, they just close your account down and you can't take money. So it's not like there wasn't already a system in place for checks and balances of that. And it's not like these server owners don't receive emails day in and day out about, 1.8 name changes and all these other things that are Mojang-specific questions. In fact, we're actually reducing or balancing out the email load, I would say. Last but not least, the true pay-to-win servers aren't going to be affected by this. Most of them are run by miners or hosted in third world countries such as Russia, China, Africa, countries that are almost impossible to legally police in any type of way. So the true pay-to-win servers are going to remain open and completely unaffected, and the user base of Minecraft, the people who enjoy playing games for free and like a League of Legends style play model, are the ones that are going to be penalized. You're going to be suddenly met with paywalls because they've left no other option. And unfortunately, it's something that directly affected When in Rogue, which I was working on. We were planning on releasing multiple classes, of course balanced around each other, and one wasn't going to provide an advantage over the other. It's a co-op game. But we weren't able to release the co-op classes because it counts as a pay-to-win advantage, which is the most ridiculous thing ever. So, anyway, that is what I've been up to, and I hate to even address this. It's been so drawn out, and I wish I had some better answers for you, but honestly, Notch just doesn't give a shit. He just doesn't want to be bothered with it, and he's perfectly content driving Minecraft into the bottom of the ocean, full speed. So I don't know what to tell you, but that said, I'm back. Now that things have settled down a little bit, I've got a lot of cool stuff in the works that I'm going to be sharing with you on the channel, and thank you for staying subscribed, and thank you for being so patient with me. I greatly apologize, more than I could ever apologize, for having to take that little bit of leave, but this is what I was doing, and this is why those things had to happen. Again, thank you so much for your support, and thank you for staying subscribed to the channel. Please tell your friends, and stick around. There's some cool stuff on the way. I love you all. Take care. 8-Bit Hero, over and out.